Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakorash. Double honor to the elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us His truth. And sincere Shalom to the hopeful electors out there listening, learning, and or teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom. All right, so today I want to go into the topic of women, okay? And just kind of go over how, it's important to stay focused in His truth, okay? And, just off that, it makes me think about the parable of the sower that Yahweh Shai gave us, that example. There were certain rocks that were thrown among the thorns, which represents the cares of this world choking out the truth out of us, man. You can imagine some plants trying to grow through some thorns, and the thorns poke at it, and they kill the plant. Okay, well, in this world, women problems is a big concern in this world. Okay, so we're supposed to come out of this world and not really worry about the concerns of this world, man. Amongst other concerns, you've got the plantation jobs we got to go to, finances, family problems, all type of things, other, health issues, all type of issues that, could distract us from this truth. Now I'm not saying these issues are not important. They're still important to deal with, but in the proper priority, right? Putting the Lord first. Okay, but, back on the topic of women, I'm gonna just go ahead and go into the Proverbs real quick. I'm just gonna grab a precept just to start it off. I'm gonna go to Proverbs 31 and 3. Because here we go. Proverbs 31 and 3. Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. That's right, man. Women have destroyed kings in the past, man. So we're not supposed to give our strength to these women, man. Okay, and that's really your time, man. Your time, your energy, your investments, putting it all into these women, which, a lot of these modern women out here are no good, man. They're just no good, They're selfish, they're entitled, they're narcissistic, all these things that they say about men is really just their own self-reflection, man. Because, at the end of the day, men choose who they marry or who they, have a commitment with, but women choose, in this world anyway, women choose who they supply with sex, and men choose who they make that commitment with. So because men don't want to commit to these women, they're making all these videos on X, on TikTok, on, every social media platform complaining about men. They're on YouTube, they're putting their face out there, talking about men ain't shit, where are the good men? I can't find men, where are you? This, that, and the third. Why do y'all men just want to stay home all day and you don't want to talk to us? You're watching our videos, but you're not saying anything. That's weird, blah, blah, blah. All this shit they're saying, man, but, they don't want to hold accountability. Okay, so we know the days are very evil, and a lot of these women are just, they're not, they can't be saved, man, like that song. They don't want to be saved. Don't save her. It's true. You can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And that's the majority of these women out here have multiple bodies in the 3 digits, at least, a lot of them, And so, it's just like, if you could find you a woman that's willing to do what's right, that she's willing to submit, she's willing to actually add value to your life, she's got some skills, she could cook, she could clean, she could fold laundry, she could do work around the house, so you could focus on the more important shit, like what? Going to the goddamn plantation, bringing in the money, okay? All right, but ultimately, the most important thing is not carnal, it's spiritual, it's serving Yahweh Hashem Shai. So, let me correct myself. The most important thing is Yahweh Hashem Shai, and then the other shit that you as a man gotta do, like go to the job, maybe you cut the grass or whatever, the shit that women don't really do, okay? And that's just like, that's just an example, right? However you want to divide up the tasks, okay? But ultimately, the woman is created to serve the man, not the man for the woman, all right? So with that, I'm going to go to Sirach. I'm going to go to 25 and 21. It says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman and desire her not for pleasure. That's right, man, because when you get with a woman, a lot of us, a lot of Jakes, we looking at the outward appearance. We're like, damn, she's fine, this, that, and the third. And then you get into this chasing game, man. We got to understand in the scriptures, that's not the right order. The woman is supposed to chase the man, not the man chase the woman. But you see, we live in a world where the foundations of the earth are out of course, man. That's why everything's upside down here in America and really worldwide, because America has pushed its wicked philosophies on the world, man. And I could grab a quick precept to that. This is Psalms chapter 82 and verse 5. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. That's right, man. Everything's upside down, fucked up. They walk on in darkness. Darkness represents the lack of knowledge. Okay, the lack of knowledge for how things are supposed to be. Okay, the way the Lord set up the order. The Lord did not set up the order for women to be the prize. The man is the prize. Okay, but because they set this shit upside down, what do you have? Population collapse, wars between the sexes. All right, now you got Japan over there. They have a dying birth rate. They have a dying population. If they continue on that trend, in less than 100 years, there will be no more Japanese. All right, showing you how this man's philosophies have poisoned the whole world, man. Not just his nation and the people under him, and us who are in captivity, but also the other heathens out there. Okay, even the other heathens are suffering because of the so-called white man. These Edomites, these devils who rule the earth. Okay, and especially the Israelites, man. Who are the Israelites? The so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, we are the biblical Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, and this devil has us in captivity, and has our woman over us. Okay, to destroy the family unit. That's why they came up with programs like welfare. That's why they push for women to go do ABOR, shun. Okay, you gotta be careful what I say, because they be cutting videos. But basically, they tell women to do that, to what? To perpetuate whole culture, to perpetuate, this argumentative spirit that's on our woman. Okay, that's why with welfare, if there's no man in the house, that's when the woman will get the benefits. But if she has a man, now she doesn't get benefits. Okay, so it's an incentive for her to go with the government instead of going with the so-called black man, who is the Israelite man, right? The so-called black, Latino, Native American man, who she's supposed to be with. No, she's going to go to the so-called white man for help. Go to the government, make a covenant with the heathens, And the problem is, our women are in that spirit, man, and a lot of them aren't going to snap out of it until all hell breaks loose. When all hell breaks loose, that's when the Israelite woman's going to get her ass in line, man, not before. So knowing we're in these evil times, we are at the beginning stages of Jacob's trouble, hey, we ain't really got to worry too much, man. It won't be too much longer before these women are going to be breaking down our doors, trying to get with us, man. Straight up, it's gonna be that intense, because you're gonna have, mass starvation. You're gonna have mass chaos, looting, people just breaking into people's houses to steal food, and they're not gonna ask questions, man. It's gonna be shoot first, ask questions later. People just want to eat. Once this economy finally collapses, and you're already seeing glimpses of these wars. You got all these riots. You had that in Nepal. Now you got that in Mexico. Okay. You have these different governments collapsing, different politicians in fear, because the people are rising up. Anarchy's on the horizon, man. And in anarchy, who are the biggest victims is women and children, man. So these women are going to need protection from a man, specifically a man of the Lord, you know. And so knowing that, we know, like the scriptures say in Isaiah 4:1, we'll get that real quick. Bear with me, brothers. These pages are so thin. All right. Isaiah 4:1, it says, and in that day, what day? The day of Jacob's trouble, when all hell is fully broken loose. It says, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. That's right, man. They're not going to be wondering where you going to take me to eat. You ain't taking me to the Cheesecake Factory, are you? All that shit's going to be out the window, man. It says we will eat our own bread. They're not even going to ask you for food, for clothing, nothing, man. They're just going to want your protection. They're just going to be called by your name to take away their reproach. And what's that reproach? Well, you see it today, man. A lot of these leftover women are on the internet crying, screaming, what's wrong with me? Why do men hate me? This, that, and the third. And, a lot of them complaining, oh, men don't approach me no more. What the hell? This, that, and the third. I mean, this, you could just type it in to, any social media platform and see thousands of videos of women complaining. Men are just doing their own thing. Where are they? Where are you hiding? The women are talking about, oh, let's go to Home Depot to look for men. No, you got to go to the grocery store, because if you go to the grocery store between 7 in the morning and 11 in the morning, that's when the real men are. All this shit they're talking, right? But they don't realize, man, men are clocking out of dating, right? Men are not dealing with you wicked women anymore because it's just not worth it, man. It's like, and Salakia for rambling on, but basically the point of the video is, it's not worth it, man. It's going to take too much time away from this truth, because with a lot of these females out here comes what? They're not a pillar of rest like they ought to be. They're a pillar of stress. So now you got to deal with drama, stress, shit not getting done around the house, okay? One of the main reasons to even have a woman, all right, is to get boxed. They're not giving it up, right? Because they're getting it from somewhere else, secretly, or whatever fucking reason they have, man. There's always an excuse, all right? And if you're with a woman that's denying you, bro, cut that shit off, man. All right? That's literally the whole point, all right? Or that's not the whole point, but that's a big part of it, man. And I always suspect, if a woman's not wanting to be with me, that means she's with someone else. Because a woman's always got to get it somewhere, right? Unless she's got some illness, some real serious illness, which most of the time that's not the case. Okay? It's just you just got to weigh the options, brothers. It's like a scale, okay? Is this woman giving me more than she's taking away? And you just got to, but really it's not about us, it's about the Lord, because, she may be making, doing things for you, but how much time is she taking away from the truth, man? Not too long ago, I had a situationship with a female who used to live in my neighborhood, and it was just like a lukewarm relationship, and I loved it, man. It was great, We dealt when we had to date, when we had to deal. I might have had a conversation with her for an hour, maybe lay in bed with her, might sip on some drinks, and I was out of there, and it was just like a once in a while thing, maybe once a week, maybe, twice. Sometimes we won't see each other for a few weeks. It was just kind of this on and off. She lived at her house, I lived at my house. Hey, that's one of the best ways to do it, brother, because now it's just kind of like you do what you got to do. Right? Now, that's with most women. You could do that with most women. All right? But if you want a woman that's going to live with you in your house, you got to find a woman that's in order, and that's very hard. That's a needle in the haystack. Now you got to actually go out there and search it out. And it's like, okay, you could go out there and search it out, or you could spend that time on the Lord. You see, so you got to make that sacrifice. Are you going to do it for the Lord? Or are you going to spend all this time looking for a woman that might not even exist in your area? You know, I'm not saying they're not out there. There is an elect lady. But the problem is finding her is too much time. It's too much investment. You know, and then on top of that, you know, it's still not going to be perfect. So, you know, if you get a woman that's in order. You know, don't try to turn a hoe into a housewife. You know, let's get 1 Corinthians 11 and 9 real quick. First Corinthians 11 and 9. It reads, neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. That's right, man. You know, and that's the problem today. It's been reversed. So the man has to go take a woman on all these dates, pay all this money, then get on his knees and give a woman a ring. You see? And don't none of you brothers be doing that. I'm just telling you what the world does. And then so these women have that expectation in their head. And so now you find a woman that's decent. Now you got to rewire the way she thinks. You know, it's a whole fucking process, man. You know, just pray to the Lord that he leads the right woman to you. And be open, you know, be open to meeting women. But at the end of the day, it's just like if you play the stock market or if you got a hobby, it's just like a side quest. You know, ultimately, the most important thing is Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai. So we're going to be focused on the Lord first and foremost. But then when we have some extra time, we could do all these extra side tasks and side quests and stuff like that. All right. I want to grab a quick precept to what we just read in 1 Corinthians. I want to go to Genesis because, you know, this is the way it was meant from the beginning, man. You know, let's go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter. Let's see here. Genesis 3 and 16. 3:16. Here we go. And it reads, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. Right? That's talking about that childbirth pains. Okay? And thy desire shall be to thy husband. That's right. So the woman's desire will be to her husband. Right? That's the way the Lord set it up. And he shall rule over thee. That's right, man. A woman needs to follow the man's leadership. All right? So you need to find a woman that's willing to be under your leadership, under your submission. A woman that's already wanting to please you, to do these different things for you, because she knows that's her mission, man. That's literally what the Lord created her for. Okay? And, you know, if the woman's like halfway decent, yeah, you could deal with her, man. But if a woman you're dealing with is pretty wicked, I would definitely keep her in her house and keep you in your house and just deal once in a while. You know, that would be the best setup, man. But if you're gonna move in with a woman and be together with a woman, it's gotta be like, you know, she's gotta be really, really decently in order. Okay, none of these women out here are gonna be in order fully. But I'm saying, like, she's got to be really, really decent to where, okay, you could focus on the truth. And then when you're done doing your lesson or you're done from the plantation, you come to her and you feel that sense of relaxation. You're like, okay, great. You know, you know, she's relieving the stress. Okay, now I'm able to focus on other things. You know, that's what the woman's created for. A helper that could do the little bullshit that we don't need to be doing, so that we could put mind to the more important things, like Yahweh Ba'ashem Al-Shai. Okay? So if a woman's adding stress to your life, brethren, it's not worth it. You know? And that could cause a lot of problems. It could cause you to fall out of the truth. It could cause you to crash out, make a bad mistake. You know? So it's everything's with balance, man. You just got to make the right decisions. This is 1 Corinthians 7 and 7. It reads, for I would that all men were even as I myself, But every man hath his proper gift of the Most High, one after this manner and another after that. So Paul is saying, basically it would be better for you to be like me. With Paul, he didn't deal with no women. He just focused 100% on the Lord, Yahweh Shem Shai. But not every brother could do that. Some brothers, just have a very strong desire for women that maybe is not a desire that you can kind of quell. Okay, well in that case, marry. Go find you a woman, right? And marry, by the way, does not mean to sign a contract with Esau to go walk into a wedding hall and do all that bullshit. Marrying just means to have sex. Sex is marriage. Okay, so yeah, if you're burning, go get you a woman to deal with. Verse 8, I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. Right, the unmarried and widows. So you brothers don't got women, right? Hey, just don't deal. It's okay. Don't seek a woman. Okay, you're single. We've all been through it, going up to these women, having to deal with that crazy attitude and the rejections and all that. And really, it's a woman who thinks she's up here, but she's really down here. But you know how social media dating apps, Esau's Kingdom got her head in the fucking clouds. Hey, why would you put yourself through all that stress knowing that even at the end of all them hoops, you still gonna have a wicked ass woman, man? Is it really worth it? All right, but hey, if you're burning that bad, go ahead and do it, man. Just be smart about it. That's all. So with that, we'll read verse 8 again. I say therefore to the unmarried and widows, it is good for them if they abide even as I. But if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. That's right. It's better to marry than to burn, man. So it's not the end of the world. If you can't control it and you're just like, damn, okay, I have to deal. We'll go deal, man. And there's many ways to deal. You could have like a situationship like I had. You could, you could even go pay for it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's no shame in that. Most of these women out here are prostitutes anyway. But what they do is they make you take them on 4 or 5 dates. You spend $200-$300 on them, depending on where y'all go. All right, because I heard stories about that shit. I'm like, hell no way. But that apparently men are out there spending that type of money on a woman they haven't even popped yet. All right, and then when you finally pop her, it's like, okay, how much money did you spend? That's the same thing as prostitution. It's the exact same thing. It's just more finessed, So you got to be real, bro. It's the same exact thing, man. At least a prostitute's honest. You be like, okay, this much for this, and boom, that's it. There you go. Simple, But a lot of you harlots out here, you act like you're not a prostitute, but you are. Talking about, I only date a man that makes 6 figures. That's a prostitute, So, hey, and there's nothing wrong with a man providing a woman money because, that was like basically the setup from the beginning was the man was the protector, provider, and the woman was the helpmeet. Okay? But, this world has got everything upside down, and these women thinking they're better than the other women because, they're not officially prostitutes, but really they are. All right? The Lord Yahushua said, this is a wicked and adulterous generation. So, the same way a prostitute will sleep with a bunch of different men for money, hey, these women out here are doing the same thing, man. They're just sleeping with a bunch of different men either for free or for money. So it's the same concept, man. It's nothing new. Yeah, whatever you got to do, get you a woman to deal with. Just know that if you make like a big commitment and y'all get together in the same house, that could end up being a problem. So you got to really feel a woman out and see where her head's at. See what type of speech is she having, let's go to Matthew 12 and 34 real quick, and just grab a quick precept. Matthew 24 and 34. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass. Salakia, that's the wrong one. 12 and 34. Not 22, 12. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, right? The heart is a mind, right? That's that word mind. It's really going into that. Your thoughts, your mind, okay? So let's read it again. O generation of vipers, how can ye, being evil, speak good things? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? So if a woman's, you could just pay attention to what she says, how she's reacting, just basic stuff. But, that's why the scripture says, stumble not at the beauty of a woman, because you're too busy focused on her body, her face. You're not paying attention to her mouth. Pay attention to her mouth. That's how you're going to know what's in her head. Is her head in the right place? Is she in the right place? How does she talk to her parents and stuff like that, right? Y'all brothers already know. But it's good to remind ourselves of these things, man, because a lot of time a brother could get obsessed with a woman. I wouldn't say obsessed, but just in love, with a woman. And a woman will prey on a man a lot of times when she sees that. So you just got to be really careful out here and know that, these women have the same mindset as Esau, Edom, the so-called white man a lot of times. So, you're really dealing with your enemy. When you're dealing with a woman, you're dealing with an enemy. So, you have to deal with them if you're burning. So you got to deal with them as with an enemy. Don't trust them. Don't let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. Don't put yourself in a position to be vulnerable. Don't put yourself in a position to where they could fuck your life up. And that's basically it, brothers. Just focus on your how about Shem Shai, because soon Isaiah 4:1 is getting ready to happen, man. And we actually just read it earlier. 7 women to 1 man. The scriptures also talk about a man shall be a hiding place from the wind. Okay? Because there's going to be all type of hell and chaos out here. And the only place of rest these women are going to have is under the submission of a man. Okay, and on that day, they will have no problem submitting to a man. Feminism is going to be over when that's happening, man. And they're going to come back to their senses and understand that this whole society was an artificial facade that was set up, to destroy the Israelite man and woman, because they destroyed themselves in the process, man. They're more depressed than ever, yet they're more liberated than ever. Does that make sense? Okay? It doesn't. And then also these children, they have to suffer without fathers because the woman's too proud, has aught against the man, wants to get the man out of the house. We can go on and on and on, man. All these things can happen to you if you make the wrong decision with a woman, man. So don't be captivated by her looks. Be captivated by what she's willing to do for you. That's her whole purpose on this earth. For a woman is to do service unto her husband. Okay, so it's definitely like understanding that fact and putting Yahweh Shem Shai first. And I always ask yourself, how does this affect my walk in the truth? And that's really with anything, not just women. Any hobby you take up, any new job you get, anything you do in life. Always ask, how does this affect my walk with Yahweh Shem Shai? Is this conducive to this truth, to this walk? And of course, we always got to have a job, and a lot of us will always have to deal with women to some extent, but we don't have to deal the way the world deals. We don't have to let people shame us into dealing with them the way they want to be dealt with. Nah, we're going to deal with y'all the way we're going to deal with y'all, and that's that. All right? But, there's plenty of sincere Akwath out there. Don't get it twisted. This isn't me hating on all women. It's just me talking about how the majority of them are wicked. And, those of you that are of the elect, you women out here that are of the elect, you Israelite women, the Lord is going to save you, okay? But because y'all came back to this truth, man. And that's what the other women can't understand. That's why they calling y'all's pick-me's. That's why they calling y'all, all these different names, because they're just jealous. They see that you're on the right path, but they're too proud and too stubborn and too hard-headed to change their ways. So they're just crabs in a bucket, and they want to drag you back into that bullshit, man. So yeah, hey, you women that are watching, you Aqua, man, don't feel bad for coming back to your heritage, for actually being a real woman, man. You know, there's strength in being feminine, man. That's a beautiful thing. You know, it takes strength to actually be a real woman, to submit yourself, to humble yourself to a man, to understand that that's wise, okay? You know, that, hey, these other dummies out there don't got it, but y'all women got it, man. So, hey, call Allah Yahweh Shem Shai for that. Continuing in the faith, staying humble, pray with your head covered, and, you know, do what you're supposed to. And if you be of the elect, you know, like we always say, if we be of the elect, then the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai's got our back. We're going to be taken care of, man. Either way, we're going to be taken care of, man, no matter what happens. All hell breaks loose, you know, this year, you know, or next year. However it happens, man, as long as we continue on, we're going to be good, you know. So, yeah, with that, I pray this lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Chakurash. Double honor to the elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us this truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect. Shalom wa. Abad babal. Shalom.